get the pleasure today of introducing Katie and Joe, who are going to be sharing a bit about their one-to-one. So please welcome Katie and Joe.
Thank you so much. Okay. As Steve said, I'm Katie Cartham from Bremerton School District. I'm the digital education coordinator. So that means I'm kind of on the softer side of tech. I do tech integration and professional development around integrating technology K-12. That's why I'm here today.
And I'm Joe Marquez. I'm CDW's education strategist. I'm somebody that can come on site and help collaborate with school districts once your one-to-one initiative is going out, see what you're already doing, look at your school initiatives, and really bring one-to-one and joy to the classroom utilizing these devices so teachers don't run scared from them. They actually just want to use them. So.
All right.
And so this is a partnership between CDW and Bremerton, because Bremerton had the idea of going one-to-one, and they reached out to us saying, hey, we're looking at doing something a little bit different. Would you mind helping us out? And through a variety of different means, I came aboard, and I've been going down to Bremerton about once a month, helping with their pre-rollout for their teachers to get acclimated to utilizing the devices.
All right, so where we were, we basically started from scratch as a district. We went from minimal technology in the buildings to where we are today and moving into the future towards a one-to-one program at our secondary schools. Oh, wait, wrong one. So Bremerton School District, isn't that a pretty picture? Bremerton. We have 10 schools. We have about 5,000 students in K through 12. Military town, Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, Bangor, and Keyport are all in that general geographic area. We're small geographically. Our district is pretty compact, and we tend to be on the lower end socioeconomically for the region. We're approximately 65% free and reduced lunch, depending on the building. So we do have some challenges, but we're really taking some steps to make a great educational opportunity for all of our students. So, history of tech in Bremerton School District. We did not have a tech replacement cycle in 2014. Is that correct, Steve? Is that okay? Great. We used a lot of refurbished technology. Often, technology would come into buildings based on grants or special projects at different buildings. I've heard stories of devices that were donated by our military installations when they no longer needed them, and the guys would take all the insides out and take them in the back to power wash the exterior of the devices before we could put them into the schools. So a lot of bubble gum and baling wire to get technology into our classes. But we started making some changes around 2013, 2014. The elementary schools started with basically a lab at each elementary, and this was when testing was starting to ramp up, and getting the kids through testing. It would be a huge window because you had to get each class in at a different time, and so we started looking at what are some options that we have. And so our technology supervisor, Steve Bartlett, did some amazing work with his budget and talking with other departments about putting together a project of Chromebooks at the elementary school. And I don't know if anybody here is from Lake Stevens, but we basically copied from you. We've gone and seen their Chromebook rollout at their elementaries moving into middle school and high school, and we're really impressed with how that was set up. So we used a lot of that structure when we put that together. And basically what we did was found funding for 3 Chromebook carts for each of our elementary schools and had teachers apply in teams of 2 or 3 to go through training so that they would have access to a shared cart. And in that time, we went from the one lab at each elementary to now each of our elementaries is at a 1 cart for every 2 regular ed classrooms. So it's been really successful. One of the reasons that we started at the elementary is because there was resistance at our middle school. Not so much at the high school. The kids wanted the technology at the high school. High school teachers were a little hesitant. The middle school was really resistant to the idea of increasing technology. And so part of the reason we went with elementary is we thought, get those kids used to using technology, and then they're going to get to the middle school and say, where's my Chromebook? Why am I doing everything pencil and paper? And kind of have that encouragement coming from the students. And so the teachers would also look down and see what the kids were able to do and what was happening in the classroom. So,
and I think that's a great model as well. You know, if you look at Costa's report, it says that 64% of high schools are going one-to-one, 67% of middle schools are going one-to-one, but only 41% of elementary schools have gone one-to-one. And that's a little bit backwards because you do want the kids to be sufficient with those technology and those devices, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So when they get to middle school, when they get to college or high school, those teachers aren't teaching the kids how to use the devices. They're just encouraging innovation and creativity with those devices. So the way Bremerton did it, by rolling it out through the elementary classes first, I think is really going to help out that push in the middle and high school. And those resistance teachers are going to see, I don't have to know everything about technology because my kids do. I'm just there to guide them and use my pedagogical practices to really enhance the learning. So the technology is not going to replace the teacher. It's really just going to enhance the learning that's happening.
Yeah, and we found that that's really what's happening in our district. So it's been great. And then in 2018, we passed a technology levy, a one-year levy in the district, and it's really been a game changer for us. So we were able to kind of kickstart this movement beyond just 3 carts per building to really increase technology at a very rapid pace at the middle school and high school, thanks to our technology level and a grant from DODEA, the Department of Defense Education project. So early spring 2018, we passed a technology level $2.4 million to fund a one-to-one project they're hoping for a replacement cycle after 4 years out of that as well. So yeah, we're working on it, but it is a great start to rolling this out. The focus was on devices for secondary students, and that was what we were given. There wasn't a specific plan, this is how it's going to look, but the point of the levy was to increase technology access for our secondary students. So in late spring of 2018, our district applied for a DODEA grant. It's on STEM equity, and it was a combination of technology and college and career readiness. And so as it was written, we were looking at how can we leverage the DODEA grant and the technology levy to increase that capacity in terms of the one-to-one. In October of 2018, we found out that we received the DODEA grant. It's $1 million over 5 years, and we developed a team in terms of implementation. And in November of 2018, we started our planning year. And it was the planning year for the DODEA grant, but it was also the planning year for one-to-one. We knew we had 1 year to get a foundation in place to launch this one-to-one project. We really wanted it to be successful. So we started working with the CDW team on the phone and online to develop this plan, and our training with Joe started in February.
And the funny thing about the grant is that, so I was hired with, I just left the classroom. I was an 8th grade science teacher, instructional technology specialist in my district, and I just left and I just got hired in April. And the very first day that I was on the job, I got an email from Katie saying, hey, we have this grant, we would love CDW to partner with us. And I was like, I have no idea if we can. I'm new, I don't even know what I'm doing, right? But they said, it's on college and career readiness, and we have already utilized AVID for, I'm like, wait a minute. That was a key because AVID just started creating a digital teaching and learning rollout. And so we were thinking, if college and career readiness is at the forefront of this grant, and if the technology in the classroom can mirror the AVID strategies currently being used in the classroom, it is a perfect marriage because you're not going to have teachers say that's 2 things we have to learn. It's 1 thing. It's AVID DTL through the lens of a one-to-one rollout. And we were like, that's going to be the key to success with this. And that's how we wrote the grant, or that's how I contributed to the grant. And 6 months later, boom, they got it, and we hit the ground running.
So college and career readiness and AVID has been a focus in Bremerton for over 10 years. Bremerton High School has had the AVID elective. Mountain View Middle School is also an AVID elective school, and those are our 2 main secondary schools. AVID's been part of the increase of our grad rate over the past decade or so. Our grad rate has increased consistently, and AVID is a part of that. And this year, we've moved to AVID school-wide throughout the district. And so that's been a great opportunity. The DODEA grant has allowed us to kickstart that even faster. We were planning to do it anyway, but it really has helped us move forward with that. And it's a college and career readiness focus. AVID is very focused on college, but also career as well. And we understand that many of our students end up working for the local military bases after graduation, and we want to prepare them for internships and apprenticeships, as well as college and trade schools and things like
Absolutely.
that. So.
What kind of skills from the AVID program is it that makes the students attracted to the military installation?
I would say organizational skills, skills of inquiry, and being able to dive in and research things and understand, how things go together. Some of the soft skills in terms of interviewing, really being able to talk with adults.
Collaborating
like
with groups, really diving deep into a question, not being given the answers, but they're the ones diving deep, and the teacher themselves is kind of just the guide to the learning. That's incredibly key. The days of information gathering are pretty much over. It's how can you assimilate and understand this information as it's coming out. And especially in middle school, it's very hard to talk to one another, right? I mean, if you remember middle school, it was a very awkward time. And so if you have a one-to-one rollout and all you're doing is computing, you're not really getting those introverts a chance to really communicate with one another. And we think that's a fear with that one-to-one rollout, is that teachers are going to fear that students are going to lose that communication factor, and they're going to really focus on the device rather than focus on the learning. And the great thing about AVID in this one-to-one rollout was that the teachers already had a great pedagogy, a great system of strategies to get the students interested in the lesson and for the teacher themselves to guide the learning, but the students are really the creators of the content. And now embedding the technology to that, it really fits hand in hand with really not focusing on the screen, but utilizing the computer as an enhancement to the lesson, not a replacement of the lesson. And so if you haven't heard of AVID before, AVID stands for Advancements via Individual Determination, and it's a college career readiness program. And they are a tried and true tested strategy that really does get students to really understand organization, to really understand how to communicate and collaborate with one another, and to really get students who don't think they can make it the scaffolding and opportunity to hit those marks. And we just wanted to make sure that was at the forefront, because this is what we're layering the technology on top of. An already laid path where the students can be the learners, and then the technology is just going to help guide that a little bit farther. So especially since on Bremerton slide, they have a 62% free and reduced lunch population. That's usually the population. It's the ESL students, the low income students, really that AVID truly helps. To get them to understand that just because your parents didn't go to college doesn't mean you can't. Just because your parents went straight from high school to the shipyard, that doesn't necessarily have to be your path. You can forge your own way. And so that's why we really just wanted to make sure that you understood what AVID was, because this is the framework we laid everything on top of. And they're a national organization with schools in Oregon and Washington that we can actually work with and collaborate with to see those results in real time.
And we'll be sharing them.
It's K-12.
It's and higher ed now actually as well. So those students that didn't get AVID in K-12, they're working with colleges to get them prepared in higher ed.
Yeah, and I totally lost what I was going to say, so I'll move on to the next one. So why did we decide to partner with CDW? Part of that is because of past partnerships. We have worked with CDW for many years, purchasing hardware from them, and we had worked with actually the person who had been in Joe's position before, as we were starting to lay the foundation for increasing our technology. So when we decided to go for the DODEA grant, one of the things that they look for in it is in kind, or who are you going to be partnering with, and how are you going to support this beyond just the money that we're handing you, but what are we going to be doing to bring other partners into it. And so when we called CDW and said, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing, and is there anything, any way that we could be partnering with you? And we found out that Joe was the new education strategist, and not only did he have that technology integration background, but he also had the AVID background. We started calling him Joe the Magical Unicorn, because he fit both of those buckets. And I just have to say that as we were putting the slide deck together, I wrote in, we were doing this remotely, I wrote in Joe the Magical Unicorn, and probably within 2 minutes we had the Bitmojis in there, because Joe is
You gotta have a unicorn Bitmoji ready for any situation.
Absolutely. So we were good to go.
And the thing about this is that when I got hired by CDW, I had no idea who CDW was. You know, being an educator, I don't do any purchases, so I had no idea. But they basically said, look, we sell devices to schools, and sometimes they need collaboration. Sometimes they need collaboration with their educators, their TOSA group, their EdTech group, to really get these devices utilized. Because, you know, there's nothing worse than you working your butt off in IT to get the Wi-Fi up and running, to get everything in your ecosystem up and running, to buy these devices, go one-to-one, and you look and see they're not being used at all. Or testing comes in and they're 6 updates behind because they haven't opened them in 3 months. Mm-hmm. The idea behind this partnership was, if you purchase devices through CDW, we're going to ensure those devices are being utilized, and we're going to ensure that the teachers are using them joyfully, not forcefully. And that's the idea behind me coming in to help with Bremerton, is that we didn't want to just change the way teachers are teaching the kids. We're looking at a way to change the way teachers reach these kids, and to really help them understand that if we're trying to teach the kids the same way we did 20 years ago, we are really robbing our students of tomorrow, because those skills that we're teaching them now, that's not what they're going to need in college 4 years from now. That's not what they're going to need in their career 8 years from now. We need to teach them strategies and successful utilizations of technology, but in a way that teachers do not feel overwhelmed, because they're always going to say, that's another thing on my plate. How can we ensure that it doesn't feel that way? And that's what we've been working on, is really stoking the community and the climate and culture of the school district to embrace the one-to-one rollout once it happens.
We really wanted to take this year to kind of set that foundation, because we don't want to have these great devices, hand them out, and have them turn into shelfware or sit in the backpack, or the kids never charge them at home because they're not going to need them at school, so why even bother? So really having this opportunity to kind of set that expectation and to get the teachers enthusiastic and excited has been, I think it's going to be key to this rollout being a success. So.
And one of the questions that we're always going to get, especially from our veteran educators, is that really, do devices really help our students, or do they hinder our students? One of the things I always get from educators, especially in the high school level, in the AP classes, they always say, you know what, handwritten work has been shown scientifically to produce better results than computerized work. And I ask them all the time, what study are you referring to? And they can never pinpoint which study they're talking about. But it's something they've heard anecdotally.
A handwritten study.
Yeah, handwritten study. Yeah, absolutely. And so our idea is, you know what, if I agree 100%, if all you're utilizing a computer for is typing, get rid of them and write on paper. So we have to really elevate how we're utilizing these devices to really engage the students, to enhance the lesson, so that the students are really doing something transformative. And we have to ask ourselves, would this lesson be possible without the device? If the answer is yes, you don't need to utilize it. If the answer is no, let's figure out a way to get those devices in the hands of our kids to really change the way they're interacting with their notes, interacting with their learning. And so that's really what we're trying to figure out. Do devices help or hinder students? And kind of like a side note to this, in California, they pushed out billions of dollars when Governor Brown was governor, billions of dollars to the school districts to close the achievement gap. That's the thing, close the achievement gap. From the low-income students to the high-income students, let's close that gap. And so they were pushing all these dollars out. And Governor Brown said, there doesn't have to be any, you don't have to prove to us it's working. We're just going to keep giving you this money. We're going to trust you to utilize it the way that you best see fit. Well, now that we have a new governor in California, they're like, well, we're actually going to get an auditor and find out where you spent every single dime of that money, and we're going to see if it actually has closed the achievement gap. And one of my big fears is that one of the things they're going to pinpoint is they purchased this number of devices with technology, and it didn't close the achievement gap. Therefore, devices are not helping our kids. But that's why we need to ensure that there is a strong backbone of some kind of strategy to use those devices in the classroom. There needs to be a PD structure in place so that the teachers are using the devices effectively. Because we all know a bad teacher is going to be a bad teacher even with the best devices.
So wireless or other internet access for students at home. That piece, do you have any strategy for helping solve that problem?
Yes, we do. We do know that there's the Comcast low-income wireless access availability. We do have some wireless hotspots that we are going to be purchasing for students that don't have access at home as well.
Yeah, and we've heard of some school districts actually utilizing buses as the Wi-Fi hotspots. So they would identify on the buses where the students have the least amount of Wi-Fi, and they would park the bus overnight in those locations, so the students would be able to access Wi-Fi that way.
We also have a partnership with our local library system, and they have access there as well that they're inviting students
Try to
in.
get the school city government to offer citywide Wi-Fi.
Well, once Google puts those Wi-Fi balloons up, hopefully everybody gets free
There
Wi-Fi.
you go. Yeah, that is something that we've actually discussed with our local government, and it just hasn't moved forward. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And so what we would like to say is the idea of putting technology in the classroom is for the future of our students, because this 1/3 of the skills that are thought of as being needed now in the workforce, those are going away. And so we have to actually utilize things in the classroom, such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. Those are the skills that are going to be highly valuable in the workforce of the future, even in the workforce now. And so how can we utilize technology? How can we utilize computers to increase critical thinking? How can we utilize technology so that the teacher doesn't have to wait until they give their formative assessment on Monday to see if the students understood the previous week? How can we ensure that students can inspect student work right now, make those corrections in the moment, and be able to redirect them down the right path during the lesson? How can we get teachers to be able to do that? Right? Technology is the way. Last night we were playing, what was that? What were we playing?
The trivia?
The trivia, yes. Last night we were playing trivia in the other room over there, and we were saying the entire time, we wish this was done digitally so we can instantly see if we got the question right or wrong instead of having to wait until the end. But that's what students need, right? If we let the students wait too long and think their answer is correct, and it's not, if we let them wait too long, that answer kind of sees in their mind as the correct answer. If we can get them to change right away, it's an extremely powerful tool. Communication, those students who sit in the back all the time, that don't want to talk, that are very introverted, that really have something to say but they don't want to raise their hand, giving the voice to the voiceless with those devices, incredibly powerful for students. I had a student in my classroom 2 years ago who was selectively mute. He hadn't talked in the class since 3rd grade. He was in my 8th grade class. And so we utilized devices and Flipgrid to have him be able to communicate with me. By being at home and utilize Flipgrid, I actually was the only teacher since 3rd grade to hear his voice during that entire time, because we gave him an avenue to let that communication shine. Get kids to collaborate digitally and physically. That's where AVID comes in, right? Being able to see information on the computer and then get out and talk to one another and disseminate that information in a one-to-one or group process. And creativity. You can't tell me that you put some Minecraft and a student together that they can't create something amazing. Kids are amazingly creative, and you give them the chance, they're going to be able to do that. And so the World Economic Forum says that the 4 number 1 things that the businesses are going to be looking out for is innovation, creativity, active learning, and leadership. Active learning means in the moment, they are all working together to come up with a solution to a problem. How can we do that? And leadership. One of the things I was telling my junior high was we shouldn't have an honors science class, because those students can become leaders in the general population. They can actually get those students who are falling behind, round them up, and say, this is the way we should try. If you're all in the honors class, you're not really giving them a chance to be leaders because they're all kind of in that same level. And just one last thing. One thing we always say is nothing could be more absurd than an experiment in which computers are placed in the classroom and nothing else has changed. Just putting computers on a desk is not going to change the way your classroom works. The way the classroom works has to be changed first. The way the teacher approaches the learning so that can happen.
So this is our kind of triangle of how we're all connected here. We've got the Bremerton School District mission and goals: provide equitable education opportunities and supports for all students to provide them the foundation to live productive and rewarding lives. Then we've got AVID, creating an engaging classroom environment that closes the achievement gap And then the goal of one-to-one devices, powerful and smart use of learning technologies. But right in the middle of it, right in the middle of that triangle, is the professional development. And that's what we've been working on this year and moving forward. So we are building a strong foundation. This is where we're at right now, and we're getting teachers excited. So we started out by creating tech leaders at each campus. We have 10 schools. We have tech leaders there's one from each elementary school, and then we have multiple at each secondary school. The elementary school teachers have gone through some training already, and the one-to-one is 612, the take-home model. So that's where the most need is going to be, and the least technology experience that the teachers have. So the teachers that were selected for this have gone through AVID training already. We knew that if we tried to throw both of those things at teachers as completely new ideas at the same time, there would be a lot of resistance. So we wanted to make sure there was a foundation for the staff that we chose for that. And our goal for this, we focused on building capacity. We wanted teacher leaders. We wanted someone down the hall that if you were having a problem with the devices in your classroom, you could go knock on somebody's classroom door and say, help me out. I know you've done this already. What does it look like? What am I doing wrong? How can we fix this? So, and this is some of our staff in training with Joe.
Did you select the teachers?
We asked for selections from the principals with some guidelines.
Okay.
So that was needed to be AVID, needed to have this background. So, but ultimately it was a building decision who was going to do it.
And the great thing about that group is they were still at a varying of technology levels. Mm-hmm. Some had a lot more experience than others. And so while going through the group, we had to start really from the ground up so that they can kind of see how they would approach their teachers from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And we started creating some instant wins and answers to questions that we know they're going to have. Like, you're asking me to use technology, but what are you going to take away from me? If you're asking me to do one more thing, what are you going to take away? And I go, so here's an answer we're going to give them. We're going to show them how to do one more thing that takes 3 things away. Right? Instead of them having to update their website, update the school website, inform their parents through Remind, and then put something in Google Classroom, we created a workflow where all they do is post something in the classroom. It automatically updates the school website. It automatically posts to Remind. It does all of those things in one hit of a button. So taking away responsibilities by giving them one more responsibility that takes care of all of those. Mm-hmm. And the idea that we always approach is growth mindset. Really, we want the teachers to be able to be thinking down the future of what the kids really need. But the one thing that I tell these teachers, we actually went and talked to the middle school, and Katie prepared me. She was like, they do not want you here. They do not want to use technology. And the first thing I said is, look, I know you're going to hear growth mindset. I said, I don't like it because it puts teachers into categories. I go, I don't want you to be called a laggard. I don't want you to be called the innovator. We are all teachers, and we all need to be working together at the same level. And when Katie said there should be somebody down the hall to help, that should be everybody. Because I tell teachers all the time, if you're using technology alone, you are using it wrong, right? Because teaching is a collaborative sport. When we learn and innovate and share it out, we all learn and innovate when that is being shared out. So I say, instead of growth mindset, we have to have the mindset of tamasha. Anybody heard tamasha before? Tamasha? So I heard about tamasha through a documentary on cricket, which sounds very exciting, I know. But the idea behind it is that cricket is a British game, and when the Britons had control of cricket, it could last up to 3 days. Now, if you'd watch just an hour of cricket, you're like, 3 days? Who's going to watch that? Right? But Britain had control over India for a long time. When India won their independence, the one thing they said they're going to do is, we're going to change cricket. We were not allowed to play cricket when we were controlled by the Brits, so we're going to take cricket and we're going to change it up. We're going to Bollywood style it up. We're going to make it last only 3 days. We're going to change it to fit our needs. I go, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do in education. We need tamasha. And they said tamasha now means fun, exciting, important, but uncertainty, all rolled into one. And we need teachers to embody uncertainty because they need to know that when they try something new, it doesn't have to work. They need to know when they try something new, you're gonna fail. And I'm on Twitter quite a bit, and I tell people on Twitter, stop just saying the things you did good. Tell me the 20 times that you led up to that. Tell me your fails that led you up to that. Because we need to start letting teachers know it's okay to try something new and have it not work. So the idea that teaching is fun needs to be embodied. The idea that teaching is exciting needs to be in the classroom. The idea that teachers know their job is important. They need to ensure that. But they also need to know that it's okay to be uncertain that a lesson is going to work. They need to understand that. And when they start understanding that, the fear kind of subsides a little bit. When they know that when they try, something's not going to work and it's okay, they're more willing to try it again. And it's really good to model that in front of the students. When a technology doesn't work, the teacher doesn't give up. They keep moving forward.
Were the teachers paid for the training? No, they were not. So it was during the school day. So that we had substitutes, and we bring in lunch and all of that. So, and we were limited in the number of teachers that we could bring in at any given time, because you hit about 15 for PD in our district, and we don't have enough subs beyond that, with people taking time off for doctor's appointments and other things like that. So we went with about 15 anytime that we brought a group together that worked with Joe. So.
We can go ahead and pass that slide.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is what we know we're going to get from teachers when we implement some new strategies. We know we're going to get the question, but my test scores are already high. But this is the way we've already done things. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and my kids have been leading my classroom perfectly fine. But we have to make sure they understand that the kids we have 20 years ago are not the same kids that we have today. Right? When I was working at a high school that I went to, one of my English teachers still had the binder of all the different papers she would make copied and hand out. The same exact one with the exact same lessons. Nothing had changed. We have to make sure that we're constantly updating our lessons, because if not now, then when? If you're not the teacher that's going to make the change, then who is? Be that teacher to make that change, because that is the college, that is the next step our students are going to be entering. That is a college lecture hall, where you're just another face in the crowd getting a sit and get lesson. And there's no high school student that I've ever met that when they graduated and their grandparents gave them a brand new Mac, they're never going to tell them, sorry, studies show that handwritten work is more important. So you go ahead and keep that Mac, and I'm going to go buy some 3-ring binders at the dollar store. They're going to take the device, and if we as educators don't prepare them, not only are they going to struggle being away from home, not only are they going to struggle learning that new content, they're going to struggle learning how to organize and truly take notes on that device. We're making them struggle 3 times when they don't have to. So we prepare them correctly in the K-12 system, they're going to be able to succeed much more in college. Oh. And I always say that teachers need to ditch that fear, because they're always going to be relevant. They're going to be relevant because they have great pedagogy, they have great relationships with kids, they're going to be great. So if the technology doesn't work, it's okay. And so if you know you're good without technology, then you can actually start embracing technology along the way. And we can pass this next one.
Okay. So what does our professional development look like this year? We know that one-to-one is coming beginning of next school year, so we wanted to make sure we had that foundation. We have monthly trainings with Joe. He's been coming out to our district and meeting with our tech integration leaders, one day of each 2-day visit that he's come out to work with us. And the tech integration leaders are the same people from the schools that have been coming to each one of the meetings. So we've really kind of bonded as a group, and they're really getting excited about it. In fact, some of them have gone back to their buildings and taught some of the things that they've learned and set people up. One of our elementary schools, every teacher has a Google site now with the workflow that Joe showed us how to do. We've also had meetings with the entire middle school staff that Joe came and talked to them and talked them through some of the Ditch the Fear and Tamasha and all that fun stuff. And a high school staff meeting is next month. So, and they're looking forward to meeting him as well. So we wanted to get him in front of those staffs and, beyond just the tech leads, really let everybody know you've got this. It's going to be okay. We've also had half-day trainings with our principals, with our instructional coaches, and with our multimedia specialists. And in fact, the role of our multimedia specialist, which in previous years has been more of coverage of teacher prep time. This next year, they're going to be moving into more of a technology coach model and pushing into classrooms and working with staff and helping them with this transition as well. And then I've started implementing what I call tech and treats, because we all know that the motto for education is we'll meet for food. So I provide brownie ice cream sundaes, make your own, and invite people down to the district office one day a month. And this year I've been teaching the Google Classroom, Google Calendar, Google Sites workflow, how to set up your Google site so that your daily agenda in Google Classroom is posted automatically, and then it'll show up on the district website and your own page so that parents can go and get that information. So I've been teaching people to do that. And that's going to be our one ask next year for our teachers, is that they have a Google Classroom, that they use the daily agenda in Google Classroom, and that they set up a Google site that the calendar will be embedded and that information will be available, so that improves communication with our families. So they know what's going on in the classroom. And we've had some teachers who have started that this year, and I've already gotten feedback from teachers. A middle school teacher who hasn't been really strong in technology, but she went for it, she implemented it, and came back to me the next month and said, I put this in place and it has completely transformed my classroom. Kids are absent and they come back with their homework completed because they can go see what they missed and get it done, so they don't get behind. I'm not getting as many phone calls from parents asking what's happening. She said it's just been amazing. So
and one of the reasons we started that workflow was because in order to get that to work, the teachers have to have the kids get the devices out, go on, look at the agenda in classroom, and they mark it as done. They push it out as an assignment. That's how it gets to that workflow. We're hoping the teachers say, well, now that they already have their devices out, what else can we do with them? Right? If they're the ones coming to us saying, we already have this stuff out, what else can you show me? Mm-hmm. It's not us forcing them to learn new technology, it's them wanting to learn it. And we're hoping at least half the teachers start doing that. And so now we can start really going full force with the different ways that we can really elevate the classroom by incorporation of these digital tools for creativity, collaboration, communication within the classroom.
Yeah. And we're really working to create a culture of not just digital citizenship, but citizenship in general. We've started a partnership with Common Sense Media and are working next year towards becoming Common Sense certified schools. And really emphasizing citizenship in all facets of student life. Yeah, let's talk about cyberbullying, but let's talk about bullying too. Let's talk about how to communicate effectively online, but how do you communicate effectively in person as well? And so showing that it's not a step different, it's not a different bucket that you need to look at, but it really is just being a decent human being and being a good part of a community.
And one of the ways to really do that with the technology you already have is through Google Classroom questions, right? You have the students answer a question through Google Classroom, and once all the students are done answering the questions, they also read other students' answers. And somebody else has to stand up and read an answer that somebody else wrote that affected them. And what that starts to build is what I write digitally affects people emotionally and physically, and they can repeat what I said. That connection is incredibly powerful because it's no longer just something they push out and it's gone. It's now something they push out and is repeated in the moment. And that connection between digital and physical starts to happen. And so if you notice, we have this idea that there is no such thing as digital citizenship. It's just citizenship. So if we can just train citizenship, there should be no need for digital citizenship.
So now the question is, where are we going? We've set this foundation. We've started building partnerships. We're working with our teachers and building that culture of inquiry and excitement around providing the devices to our students and bringing those into the classroom. So our main goal on this is we're breaking down department silos. So there's IT and there's curriculum. But if they're not working together, then they're not being effective. Because if curriculum's off buying software and they don't ever check with IT to find out if the software works on our devices, then nobody's happy. Or if IT is, getting a device, but it doesn't meet the needs of a particular curriculum area, then they're not going to be happy either. So it's getting those conversations happening and making sure that we're working collaboratively. And so through this project, we've really started breaking down those silos and bringing things together. and tech and professional development. I'm kind of the tech PD side of it, but there is a larger professional development plan for the district, and I've been working really closely with our professional development coordinator to make sure that what we're doing in the technology PD supports and anchors and is tied in well with the rest of the PD that's going on in the district. So that, again, our teachers see it as not one more thing, but it's all together. So we want to bring it all together. Multi-tiered systems of support, RTI, AVID, technology, all of those things. We want to bring them together and show how they're all part of the same ecosystem and that we all work together on that. It's a good way to save budget because if you don't have to bring in different speakers for each separate thing, then you've got more money set aside for, you don't have to use quite as much money for your PD budget. You're showing that integration, you're showing that it's all connected, that it's all about good teaching and good relationships with students and preparing them for college, career, and life. And it does take away the one more thing on my plate mentality. Because if you're sending someone to, oh, you've got to go to this training and then this training and then this training and then this training over here and then this training over here, and yeah, have fun next year. There's going to come a point where they're just like, no, I'm full. My brain is full. Please excuse me. So we need to be able to show how all of those things integrate, how they come together, and really this training that we've been doing with Joe, the collaboration, has really brought that into the forefront for us.
No, that's absolutely true. And the idea of doing that PD so that they can actually take and use it the very next day is incredibly important. Another study from Costa showed that 70% of those schools that have gone one-to-one are still using as much or more paper than before they went one-to-one. And that shouldn't happen. But what happens is, if all you do is a 1 day of PD and nothing else, the teacher's security blanket is their printed papers. If you don't show them how to transform the way they use their classroom, they're going to always regress back to what they've already done. 1 day of PD is not going to change that. The way to change it is to culturally change it, to really show how the technology piece is integrated into all the other PDs you're already doing. Imagine if you have your science teachers going to NGSS trainings, but the way that you created the training also embedded AVID strategies for that course and technology strategies for that course. And so that one singular training is just giving everything at once. They're not thinking, I'm learning science, AVID, and technology. They're thinking, this is my NGSS training. This is the way it's supposed to be. That breaks down the silos, that maximizes the PD time, and that is really going to change the way teachers think about how to use these devices in the classroom. And hopefully we get that print number down if you go one-to-one.
So our future plans for professional development, we have EdTech team bringing in a Google Summit in June of 2019. We actually were rather fortunate with Snowmageddon and all of the days that we missed. The way that our waiver worked out was that with the minutes that our students have, they're actually done 2 days before teachers are. So we took one of those days, and that never happens, where you have a day where all the teachers have to be there and the students aren't. And they don't have anything already assigned to do that day, so we're bringing in a Google Summit. And what we have asked them to provide as part of the Google Summit is at least one session for every curriculum area, so that the PE teacher, the health teacher, the art teacher, the music teacher can learn how to integrate technology into their classrooms in an authentic way. So it's not just, oh, well, that's something the English teacher needs to do, or that's something to do in math, but it's everybody. We're all in this together. And then we have a Summer Institute in August, and this is something that is coming up on our 7th year, that we provide a professional development, sort of a mini conference for our teachers, and we do have a dedicated tech day this year. And that was already in the plans. We always have technology at Summer Institute, but when we went to teachers and said, hey, we're starting this one-to-one next year, what do you need? They said, we need something before Summer Institute, and then we need to be reminded of it at Summer Institute. So that's kind of how we set that up. We're looking into next year and beyond, some long-range planning with Joe and with CDW, and how we're going to leverage the work that we've done this year to make it even stronger and in the coming years, and to really provide that support and foundation for our teachers as we make this shift.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that we always look at after that one-to-one is, well, what happens after the one-to-one? Right? Teachers start getting excited and they go to conferences and they learn new apps, and what do they start doing? Using those apps. And we realize, wait a minute, those apps don't follow COPA compliance, or they don't follow all the different kind of compliances they need to follow. So we call those rogue apps. Or the teachers are using the computers every day, but all that teacher's going to is funmathgames.com, which does nothing, right? So to really get an insight is the culture truly shifting? Once we move that one-to-one, CDW offers a variety of different ways that they can help you understand what your teachers are actually doing, if that PD is paying off. So analytics powered by Relay is something that just came out last month. And what analytics does is it's through Lightspeed, and you don't have to already be purchasing anything through Lightspeed. There's no hardware you buy. It just lays on top of your current ecosystem. And it actually follows what every teacher is using. It ranks them, and it tells you how much, and then also if you're buying licenses for certain apps, it tells you how many of those licenses are actually being utilized and how much money you're actually wasting because these teachers aren't using them. And so it'll help you identify what licenses you need. But one of the best things it does is it also identifies the apps down at the bottom that are being used by your teachers at the highest rate. And you can see cool math games up there towards the top. Really got to change the way math teachers start looking at utilizing technology, right? If you've never seen Google Jamboard, that is a great way to get kids to collaborate and communicate online and learn math problems. We did a Jamboard Screencastify Flipgrid hack for one of their tech days, and man, it took off. It's a pretty amazing way to have kids actually show their knowledge through speaking and writing all on the same platform. But here's another great thing. If they're using apps that do not follow compliance, your privacy rating can start dropping. And so it'll actually give you a percentage of your privacy rating. You can click on it and see which of the apps your teachers are using that is dropping that privacy rating. And right there you can block it. You can see who's using it all the way through. So it's just a great insight. You could do all of this by going to all the different apps you already own and looking at those analytics, but this does it all for you in one easy-to-use dashboard. And then also we like to talk about the learning environment as well. You can't, as we looked at some of the things where you're just putting computers on a desk but changing nothing else, we can't do that. If you're adding these devices in the classroom, you really have to start thinking about a flexible environment that is really inclined for critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And so CDW offers a free, doesn't cost any money, service called B2D, where we work with your curriculum and instruction, we work with your facilities, we work with your teachers, we talk about what kind of learning is happening in the class, what kind of pedagogical changes are you looking for utilizing the devices. We start asking what kind of learning outcomes are you asking for your students, and we start putting together a picture of what your room could look like, and for free we give you a 3D rendering of your space. And it's delivered to you in about 4 weeks. And it really shows you that your space can be adaptive, flexible, and agile based upon what your students are asking for. The ability to change your classroom within 3 minutes and not have to call facilities in to change the heights of desks. All of it can be done all at once. And then we do offer professional development on that as well. So if you do purchase furniture through CDW, we can come out and really train the teachers on how to use it in their daily practices. If they're already AVID trained, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you're looking for philosophical chairs or Socratic seminars, it's already there in practice. Because classrooms have looked the same throughout the years, and if all they do is look like that, we're not really doing our job. So one-to-one rollouts may be the first phase, but you should really actually look at your facilities and say, are our desks and learning environments conducive to maximizing the effectiveness of those devices in our classroom?
So are there any questions? Anything that came up?
How many Joes are there out there in the world, and how do we get it?
So I am a free service again from CDW. So as long as you buy items from CDW, you talk with your account manager, you talk with your field account executive, and we'll get on a phone call and talk about your needs and see if we can get me out for some days of PD to really stoke that fire under your teachers. We all know that teachers are like scared deer, right? If you go at them too quickly, they're going to run away and never come back. But if you slowly put your hand out and let them sniff what you're saying, they're going to come a little bit closer. So,
Yeah.
You had talked about the asks for next year for having a site, having a classroom, using the money. Is that Can you speak more to that at all? Is that a voluntary ask? Is that something that is?
That is, I believe, going to be an expectation, at least from grades 4 through 12, because that is those are the grade levels where students will have access to a device every day.
You had union issues with that?
Not so far, because they're seeing it as our union president came to one of my trainings and he thought it was great. So, but basically, they're all expected to, in some way, post their agenda every day with an essential question and what's happening in the classroom that day. And if we're saying you don't have to write it on your board and put it out for public, you can put it in one place and it'll automatic workflow, so you don't have to write it down 2 or 3 times. So they're seeing it as taking something off their plate. So, and it's really kind of a simple setup for getting that out there. So, yeah, and I don't think I mentioned that the DODEA grant paid for 2 grade bands of computers or Chromebooks. So our 6th grade take-home 1-to-1 were part of the DODEA grant, and then carts for every 5th grade classroom were also through DODEA. So that helped extend the lifespan of our tech levy. And then the devices that are currently in the middle school and high school are going to be shifted down. So what we're anticipating is that there will be a dedicated classroom cart for every 4th grade classroom, 5th grade classroom, possibly 3rd grade classroom, but definitely 4th and 5th. So,
Did the tech levy deal with the infrastructure?
we had taken care of the infrastructure prior to that. We didn't go out for the tech levy until we already had the wireless infrastructure in place.
Which is good because we all know first use inspires future use. And so when a teacher turns on the devices and the Wi-Fi is not working, so the computers don't work, they're going to never take them out again. Right? So sure enough, that infrastructure first really, stokes a good one-to-one rollout.
Yeah, we've gone at this fairly moderate pace, not trying to go too fast on it, partly because we didn't have the funding to, just jump in feet first right away, but also because we wanted to make sure that we had the access points and the wireless infrastructure and everything set up so that when we were able to bring the devices in, it would be good to go. So.
You shouldn't take any devices home for summer?
We know at the high school that is their plan, is to allow students to take the devices home over the summer, to sign them out for the summertime. I think we're looking at it for middle school, at least 7th and 8th grade. 6th grade may have to stay because they're from a different grant. So, but yes, we're looking at that. I think part of the rollout of one-to-one is the handing out of devices, and if we don't have to collect all of the devices back at the end of the school year and hand them out again in the fall, that'll make things a little bit easier on our buildings and our tech staff. We are hopeful that the students will continue to use the devices and really have a sense of ownership around them. So it's not like, oh, I can treat this however I want because I'm going to get a new one next year. If it's their device and they're carrying it through all 4 years, they're going to treat it a little more carefully, we hope.
Do you have any rule or policies about charging if it's broken? If the device is broken, the students or parents have to pay for repair?
We are looking at that right now, how we're going to handle loss, breakage, theft, things like that. I don't know, Steve, do you want to talk to that?
I'm Steve Bartlett. I'm the tech supervisor for the Bremerton School District, so I kind of do we do have a plan policy in place for fines that we're fine-tuning exactly what those numbers are with our board right now. Community group. I think the key there is really involving your community, your board, make sure that we're going to have these fines, something that's realistically going to be enforceable, and also really looking at the fact of buying a couple $100 Chromebooks. It's not like we're sending home $2,000 $3,000 MacBooks, and there is going to be breakage. And I think that's something we really had to teach our teachers, is that it's okay. We're not going to hold them responsible. It's not their fault, because we did have, again, that was another hesitation we had at our middle school, was a fear of they're going to be held somehow responsible if their kids break their devices. And breaking through that and making them realize that, this is, for lack of a better term, a disposable technology, and that it's okay. That's just what we have. And so we are working on that. We're just finding those numbers.
And that actually leads to a great opportunity for student-led break-fix groups. Right? There's a couple districts in California that I work with. They have an entire staff of students, and they're the ones that fix all the Chromebooks. They get them certified in fixing those Chromebooks, and they'll do it. Because nobody knows more that students can take all those key things off, and nobody knows how to put it back except the student. They'll know exactly how to put those things in.
You noticed, I've done one-to-one initiatives in 2 different districts. I've done it in a small district and a rather large district, and so we do self-funding. And I've written a handbook for what we do charge and what we don't. First one's on us if they buy into the insurance, and we do. I think it's $20 if you're not free reduced, 10 if you're on reduced, and 5 if you're on free. First one, second one is 50% the parent and the district, and third claim in a given year is completely on the family. One of the things that we've noticed though is pre-middle school, not so much breakage. Post-middle school, not so much breakage. Middle school, destroyed. Yeah. That's just how it happens.
Yeah.
So.
We always say, I was an 8th grade science teacher, so all the lab equipment, I said we need a prison mentality. If this lab equipment can be sent to a prison and come back looking good, it would be good for my 8th graders. So if you have any questions at all, this is my first time at ACPE. I heard there's something going on tonight, apparently. So we're going to be at the CDW booth. If you have any questions for us, please let us know. I'll be wearing a biker jacket. You can't miss me. Or you can email me, joe.marquez@cdwg.com, or I'm a big Twitter-er, so my Twitter handle is @joemarquez70.
And my email's not on there, but I'll add it to the slide deck, and we will share that. And you can also find me on Twitter at Katie Cartham.
All right, so if anybody has any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming, and have yourselves a great evening.